Welcome to this Musical Passions podcast for City Music. I'm your host, Eric Kish, and my special guest today is Jack Sutte, who is a member of the Cleveland Orchestra and has been a part of the trumpet section there for 23 years, which is really quite fantastic. In addition, he teaches at Baldwin Wallace and has CDs to his credit, of which I have two of them and another special one of him doing some concertos. So Jack is a fantastic musician. He's going to be a soloist for the December concert of the City Music Cleveland Chamber Orchestra for the second concert with the reconstituted orchestra that started up this season after a couple of years with COVID and simply chamber performances. So Jack, welcome. Be part of our first return to normality.
Well, thank you, Eric and Jim. It's a pleasure to be with you today for this special podcast. And I've kind of lost track of how many years I've been in the orchestra. If it's 23, I'm taking your word on it. But it's been a real pleasure. I'm very fortunate.
And we're very fortunate to have somebody of your caliber in the orchestra. Is this the first time that you've actually performed with City Music?
This will be my second concerto. A few years prior to COVID, I performed the Hummel Concerto with Stefan Village. And I think it was this December kind of time. And the interesting thing about that performance of the Hummel is we did it in E rather than the normal E flat, which this Neruda concerto is pitched in E flat. So there must have been something with the trumpet back in those days pitched in these certain keys.
Well, Hummel we've heard of, and another famous trumpet concerto is the Haydn. But I tell you, I know nothing about Mr. Neruda, except Jim has managed not only to get some biographical information, and we know that he was an 18th century composer. In fact, his life spanned most of the 18th century, 1708 to 1780, which is quite long lived for those days. Now, tell us a little bit about the concerto, since I'm sure everybody listening in is going to be as ignorant as we are.
Well, you had mentioned, well, I dare say that's not true. But so you mentioned the Hummel and the Haydn. And the Neruda kind of fills out the trifecta, or the three-cornered hat of the classical concertos. The Neruda, I would say, is less classical in style than the Haydn and the Hummel. And it's a little bit more ornamented, more of like kind of the Rococo Baroque styling rather than just the traditional Baroque. So it's kind of a gateway piece, originally written for the Corno da Caccia. Which,
oh my God, that's way up there.
Yeah, so it's been one of those pieces that the trumpeters have taken on. It's in keeping with what we do with great literature, because in this period there's just not a lot to offer us as an instrument, as it was still developing historically. So the trills and the lines are, I would say, more Baroque than classical.
So there's lots of very exciting riffs, if we want to call them that, taking a word from the jazz genre.
You could say that. I would say more trills and kind of ornamental posturing by the soloist and written out by the composer to some degree. So wow. It's a real pleasure. I hope so much that one day that I have mentioned the three concertos that I have the opportunity to perform the Haydn. It's been a minute here in Cleveland for that matter. So,
well, I hope you get to make a recording of it too.
Well, that's the other thing. It's on my bucket list to try to do these three. Pardon the clock.
Well, let's see what we can organize with City Music. They will do some recording, and you're doing this with them. And let me see if I can put a little birdie tweet in somebody's ear on that. Is this concerto in the sort of typical style of fast, slow, fast three movements?
Yes, it is. The first movement's an allegro, the second movement's an adagio, and the last movement is an allegro. The first movement's basically in a 2-feel, the last movement's in a 3-feel. Um, Very typical.
For a trumpeter who has got chops and can really do these trills and runs and stuff like that, that's the very exciting part. But is it, from your point of view, harder to do the slow movement where you've got to hold the line and be gentle and caressing at times rather than display piece?
That's an excellent question, especially in the classical literature where much of the trumpet music we equate, especially from the orchestra, is basically fanfares. Rum bum ba bum bum ba rup ba da ba ba rup ba da ba ba, that type of thing. So I think in that keeping, it is a nice opportunity to sing a line. However, in my training, of course, we're always taught to emulate the higher qualities of the voice or the violin and the oboe. I know the trumpet doesn't necessarily come to mind when you're thinking of beautiful singing music, but it is something that I aspire for in my playing when those lines happen, and the beautiful phrasing. Um, You'd think more of it in the classical repertoire with oboe or flute or violin, like I mentioned prior.
But there are parts of some
Yes,
of Bach's work where there is a need for that very even line in some of the cantatas. So I must say I'm really looking forward to this.
yeah, I think it's not as quite the Neruda concerto in this case is not quite as full of counterpoint as Bach would be. But I dare say it's elegant, it's beautiful to listen to, and I think compelling in our repertoire. And I'm so excited to perform it.
Great. It's a wonderful program. Just recently, we interviewed Chabrel Williams, the soprano, who's going to be doing 3 arias from 3 different operas. And that's very exciting. And I keep thinking that with her incredible ability and yours, that there is a recording of an aria that I played on the radio many times, by a Baroque composer in which it's fireworks for the soprano with the trumpet mirroring the vocal line, and the 2 trade backwards and forwards. If you did that, I'd pay a lot of money to go and hear a concert that featured that.
Well, I think that you got to get that little bird going again, and we can try to make that happen. I first met Chabrel this last season as part of the City Music Chamber Music, and she is phenomenal. I enjoyed her work very, very much on the pieces that she recorded by Ms. Barnes and Ms. Meyer,
That was
featuring.
some concert, wasn't it?
Oh well, I wasn't there for the concert, but I did some of the producing afterwards for the session for the video that is online.
Oh,
Um, yeah, it's fantastic, and the composers who I mentioned set the music so beautifully, and man, it's fantastic. So I'm anxious to hear her work again.
anything else that you want to add to what you've done?
Yeah. This performance of the Neruda, which is normally done on the E flat trumpet, I'm taking this opportunity to do it on a slightly mellower instrument, the E flat cornet. And I've been very fortunate to be a performing artist for the Shoki company based in Chicago, and their E flat cornet is amazing. So if you'd like to hear this piece on a slightly different instrument than a trumpet, this is the time to do it. Because
Sound,
most of the time it's done on E flat trumpet, which is also beautiful. But this is a slightly, the difference between trumpet and cornet is noticeable. So I'm excited for that.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing these insights into a work that will not be familiar to, I would say, almost all of us. And speaking for myself and Jim, I know we're really looking forward to this. and we'll be there to cheer you on. And thanks for taking the time out to go for this interview. And we wish you the best of luck for the rehearsals and the performance. And see you in December, sir.
Thank you so much. As my high school teacher always said, and I'm going to say this for all the trumpet players listening, she would say, break a lip.
Well, that's a great note to finish on.
Festive Sounds, a free concert to be performed 4 times at 4 different venues. Thursday, December 8th at the Temple Tifereth Israel at 26,000 Shaker Boulevard in Shaker Heights. Friday, December 9th at the Lakewood Congregational Church at 1375 West Clifton Boulevard in Lakewood. On Saturday, December 6th at the Shrine of St. Stanislaus at 3649 East 65th Street in Cleveland. And on Sunday, December 11th, 3 to 5 p.m. at the Federated Church, 76 Bell Street in Chagrin Falls, Ohio. The evening concerts are all at 7:30, the Sunday concert at 3 p.m. I'm Jim Merling. Thanks for watching.